Day 55. I'm reading Wieder Come Home by Marion Wolf, page 199. 20 years ago, Martha Nussbaum wrote about the susceptibility and the decision-making of citizens who have ceded their thinking to others. It would be catastrophic to become a nation of technically competent people who have lost the ability to think critically, to examine themselves, and to respect the humanity and diversity of others. And yet, unless we support these endeavors, it is in such a nation that we may well live. It is therefore very urgent right now to support curricular efforts aimed at producing citizens who can take charge of their own reasoning, who can see the difference in foreign not as a threat to be resisted, but as an invitation to explore and understand, expanding their own minds and their capacity for citizenship. That's a good, well said. Nussbaum's plea for a more thoughtful, compassionate, diverse citizenry could not be more urgent or timely. If we gradually lose the ability to examine how we think, we will also lose the ability to examine dispassionately how those who would govern us think. The worst atrocities of the 20th century bear tragic witness to what occurs when a society fails to examine its own actions and sees its analytical powers to those who tell them how to think and what to fear. Bonhoeffer described this old scenario from his prison cell. If we look more closely, we see that any violent display of power, whether political or religious, produces an outburst of folly in a large part of mankind. Indeed, this seems actually to be a psychological and sociological law. The power of some needs the folly of the others. It is not that certain human capacities, intellectual capacities, for instance, become stunned or destroyed, but rather that the upsurge of power makes such an overwhelming impression that men are deprived of their independent judgment and give up trying to assess the new state of affairs for themselves. Two of the greatest mistakes of the 21st century, therefore, would be to ignore those of the 20th century and fail to evaluate whether we have already begun to cede our critical analytical powers and independent judgment to others in our increasingly fissured society. Few people, if pressed, would contest that such a diminishment of our collective critical faculties has already begun. What would be contested in this whom and why? I could never have imagined that research about the changes in the reading brain, most of which reflect increasing adaptation to a digital culture, would have implication for democratic society. Yet that is my conclusion. In a dialogue between Umberto Eco and Cardinal Carlo Maria Martini, the Cardinal reiterated a timeless view of democratic process that is pertinent to this conclusion. The delicate game of democracy provides for a dialectic of opinions and beliefs in the hope that such exchange will expand the collective moral conscience that is the basis of orderly cohabitation. The more important contribution of the invention of written language to the species is a democratic foundation for critical, inferential reasonings and reflective capacities. This is the basis of a collective conscience. If we in the 21st century are to preserve a vital collective conscience, we must ensure that all members of our society are able to read and think both deeply and well. We will fail as a society if we do not educate our children and re-educate all of our citizenry to the responsibility of each citizen to process information vigilantly, critically, and wisely across media. And we will fail as a society as surely as societies of the 20th century if we do not recognize and acknowledge the capacity for reflective reasoning in those who disagree with us. As Nadine Straussine writes persuasively in her new book, Hate, Why We Should Resist It with Free Speech, Not Censorship, a democracy succeeds only when the rights, thoughts, and aspirations of all its citizens are respected and given voice, and its citizens believe that this is true, regardless of their viewpoint. The great insufficiently discussed danger to a democracy stems not from the expression of different views, but from the failure to ensure that all citizens are educated to use their full intellectual powers in forming those views. The vacuum that occurs when this is not realized leads ineluctably to a vulnerability to demagoguery, where falsely raised hopes and falsely raised fears trump reason, and the capacity for reflective thinking recedes, along with its influence on rational, empathic decision making. Okay, I should stop here. Thanks so much. Please correct me if you can. Bye.